In this video, we will learn the concept for economics, and also we will learn the definition for opportunity cost. So far, we already learned a very important concept called the scarcity, and also look at the four factors of the production, labor, land, capital, and entrepreneurship. And now you might have want to ask me, so we learned this concept, seem like none of them relate to money. So then what is economics? So why we need to learn it? And also you're thinking, ask yourself, why every company they will have chief economists? No matter Google, Facebook, Shell, oil company, your insurance, and they all have their chief economist. So what are they doing? And why they usually in a very high ranking position? So what are their main roles? Why they're so important for the company, for the business? And so I will answer this question a few minutes later. So let's just talk about resource. And every time we are facing the limited resource, that actually you should realize we have to make a choice and the trade-off to be made. So as we mentioned, the example I mentioned to you, you have 1 hour, 3 hours. So if you decide to go sleep, so what does that mean? So that means you cannot ride a bike in that hour, and you cannot talk to your professor about your awesome idea, and you cannot watching TV because you use your time to sleep. So your trade-off is to having sleep instead of to do other fun things. So the limited resource require choice and the trade-off to be made. So that's broader the vision. So no matter how an economy is organized, so there is a limit to how much it can produce. So the most evident limit is the amount of the resource available for producing goods and services. And later I will give example about government's decision and how they facing the limited resources. But before we move on, and I want to define the definition for economics. So economics is not just about money. So the economists, the chief economists for the corporation, they do help the company to make more monies, but their main job there is not just about money. So they have many other more important reasons to be in the high ranking and so needed by the big corporation. So the science of the economics actually help us frame these choices. So the economics is a tool that help us to making the decision. Those decisions are always hard decisions because you are facing a scarce resource and how you try to find the best options among all the possible options. So generally speaking, economics actually is the study of how best to allocate scarce resources among competing uses. So I know some of you said, I took other econ course before, it's so hard and I don't really want to learn it. But what I want to see is if you learn economics well, usually you can make a really much better decision in your daily life than other students who learned but not keeping the mind or who never learned economic classes. So the economics is the study of the how best to allocate a scarce resource among competing uses. So now back to the original question and why the chief economists are so necessary for big corporation. Because for the big corporation, they deal with so many problems, choices. So all those choices facing are related to the scarce resources. So when you were a chief economist, you usually have a very broad knowledge. And so at the same time, you know how to do the trade-off among different choices and try to help the decision maker to making better decision. And so some students might ask, so now why the chief economist is not the richest guy in the company? Yes, you're right. Usually the cheapest guy is the CEO. And so does that mean economist is stupid? So what I want to see is when you are talking about the people's benefits, social welfare, it's not only about money, but also about your time with the family and about how you use your resource, right? So the being a chief economist, you have good salary, but also you will have enough time with your family to enjoy another scarce resource, best allocate of your another scarce resource, which is the time. So this is all about economics. So from now on, I hope when you are learning the econ course, don't feel frustrated or scared. You actually are learning a very solid skills. It is help you to make a better decision. Not only help yourself, but also help you, the company you might work for, but even help the government to make a better decision to help the development of the society. So this is about the economics. So since I mentioned about the scare resource and I mentioned about how our government try to making choices among scare resource, I have to mention about our previous president. So President Bush, you had make the proposal, and he proposed that to colonize the moon and explore the Mars. And so you can see for this proposal, and they are facing the require scarce resources as well, because if he have put all the scientists on the moon and the Mars plan, so they actually cannot using their skill to contribute into other projects. And it's also the government budget. If they spend money in the moon and exploring Mars project, they don't have other money for such as higher education and also as helping the poor people and solving the income inequality. So obviously, when government making every decisions, and they are actually facing the scarce resources, and so that's why the economy is so important, because they will help the decision maker to understand the situation, understand the scarce resources, and they help them to making a better decision. So keep in mind what is the definition for economics. And next, we will look at the opportunity cost. Since I just mentioned about the trade-off, so there is no free lunch in the world. So everybody has to sacrifice something. So every time we choose to use scarce resource in one way, we will give up the opportunity to use them in other ways. As I mentioned about if you decide to go sleep for an hour, so which means you sacrifice your biking time, or you sacrifice the time with your professor discussing the exciting research topic. So the trade-off and will comes with a cost. So come with the cost. So now the question is, does that mean all the costs are my opportunity costs? So which means if you choose to sleep, so your opportunity cost equal to biking time, time with plus the time with the professor, plus time to watching movie. So is that true? The answer is not. So the opportunity cost actually is the most desired goods or service foregone to obtain something else. So for instance, I just mentioned about 1 hour you use for sleeping. So when you try to figure out which one is your opportunity cost, you will ask this question. So if I choose not sleeping for an hour, so what is the next thing I most likely to do? So for instance, comparing meeting your professor, reading a book, riding a bike. So riding bike is ranking number 1, which means you really want to do the biking if you don't sleep. So if that's the case, so your opportunity cost will be riding the bike. And so the opportunity cost of sleeping an hour is the riding a bike for an hour. So keep in mind, the opportunity cost is the most desired goods. So it is not all desired goods. It's the most desired goods or service foregone. So that will be your opportunity cost. And so these costs are associated with every decision. So that's why I'm sure you hear the word called that there is no free lunch. So no free lunch doesn't mean you don't pay money. That means every decision you get, any benefit you get, you are sacrificing something. It may not be money, it can be time, it can be energy, etc. So for instance, when you're trying to gaining the job opportunity, so gaining training. So for instance, your insurance offered internship, you're finding so hard, you got those internship. The reason you want to do it because you want to gain working experience in the big corporation. So that's excellent. So the question is, does that come with cost? Even they pay you. Yes, it comes with cost. The cost is if you don't do the internship with your insurance for 8 hours a day. So you can do other things. So for instance, the best thing you can do is work in the bar, and so you will get $15 per hour. So 15 times 8, $120. So those $120 will be your opportunity cost to be a free intern in your insurance. And even they pay you, your opportunity cost still be that $120. So there is no free lunch. That means everything you gain, actually, you do sacrifice something. So those are your opportunity costs. And so this is the end of this lecture. So in next lecture, and we will learn our first economic model called the production possibility curve. And we will look at on the production possibility curve, we can find our opportunity cost, we can find our limited resource definition, and also we can find even more stuff from the economic models.